Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be reviewing the fourth studio album from the Norwegian alternative folk pop singer Aurora. This is her fourth studio album if you consider Infections of a Different Kind and A Different Kind of Human to be one project. That is how Aurora is referring to this album, so that's what I will be referring to it as well. What Happened to the Heart follows The Gods We Can Touch, which was released in 2022. I have reviewed all of Aurora's albums on this channel. Those will be all linked in the description if you'd like to check them out after this. And the first single for this album was released back in November in Your Blood with its music video. And then we've gotten subsequent singles since leading up to its release. I wish I could have reviewed this sooner. Unfortunately, I had a really bad bout of food poisoning. Plus, just things got in the way once again. I really want to get better about putting album reviews up, under a week after they're released. That would be really nice. Or as soon as possible, like the weekend after, but it's been hard to do lately. I have reviewed the song Your Blood on this channel when the song came out. I will also link that if anyone is interested, but I'll be talking about it again in this video, but I did not review any of the other singles because I knew the album was coming, so I wanted to save it for this video. The concept of this album, the last album, I remember she was talking a lot about mythology and she was using Greek and Roman gods and kind of metaphorically kind of analyzing the modern condition of humanity through that lens. This time around, I think she's going a little more anatomical, so she's talking about body parts, the lungs, blood, veins, the heart, as referenced in the title. With regards to the title, and of course what we also see her holding in the album cover, Aurora read a letter that changed her life. It was co-written by Indigenous activists titled We Are the Earth, and the letter called for a revolution of healing for Mother Earth. And they talk about how the heart is the real connecting point for humans to the earth and to spirit. And so this made Aurora think a lot about the dissonance that's come about in modern times, where in the past and in the ancient past, the heart, before people really understood where it was located in the body specifically and its exact function, a lot of attributes that were later allocated to processes of the mind via scientific discovery about it, logic, reasoning, those kinds of things. A lot of it was believed to come from the heart. The mind was something that had very little to be understood. Very little was understood about the mind in ancient cultures. And so the heart has always been symbolically kind of the space where something more deeper of an understanding of love and connection to something is rooted. But I feel she felt that, and I agree that, in Western modern thinking, we've divorced ourselves more and more from the heart being a part of decision making. We kind of understand that the heart is just a beating, electrical organ that sustains life, but it does not have any aspects of, we've come to understand about our personality have been linked to the brain. And the disconnect between the heart and the brain is becoming more and more stark as we discover more in psychology and neurology. So why is the heart still a powerful symbol? And why do we use the heart to represent love rather than the brain? Because even today, we still do talk about hearts. We use the heart emoji, not the brain emoji, when we're sending, and of course this symbol has nothing, it's very different from the actual symbol of a heart, but there's a reason why that symbol derived. I think it did used to come from what a heart was visually supposed to represent, like how they represented it anatomically. It actually, if it's interestingly enough, the shape of a heart looks a little bit more like two pairs of lungs than it does actually the heart itself. And it's interesting that the lungs were never considered to be quite so much the locus of what the heart is for romance and such like that. And so the lungs are just as important as an organ, the lungs, the brain, the heart, three vital organs, well, the stomach, and there's a lot of other vital organs, obviously, but they're considered the trifecta, right? The lungs, the heart, and the brain. And so, we don't use the brain as the symbol, as the prime symbol for love, even though it really is a mechanism of the brain. Although, again, we're talking purely anatomically, not spiritually, in sort of a more belief kind of understanding of the concept. And so what Aurora does on this record is kind of expound on that idea and using the metaphor of blood and pumping through the heart, the circulatory system. She allegorically kind of paints pictures of social change or personal change, micro, macro, different songs deal with it in different ways, and centering yourself back in that space. You know, the place to healing is within. And if we can get back and rooted more in a culture of thinking from the heart rather than thinking from the mind, the, I guess, idea is that we could be a little bit more in touch with the greater good. I think that's an interesting thing to think about. I do think that we shouldn't dismiss the mind, as I do think the mind is an absolutely brilliant machine, and endlessly fascinating. I'm way more fascinated by the mind than I am by the heart. I'll be honest with you, but I do think the symbol of the heart is really important. This symbol has stood for eons, for centuries, as the symbol of human emotion, the center of human emotion, when it really is the brain. I like the album cover. It's the first album cover that her face does not appear on. I like the blue background. It's always a fan of anything blue, because it's my favorite color. Even though I do get a lot of red energy from this record. It is interesting. There's a very red undertone to it. Gods We Can Touch had some red energy as well, which is really interesting because, I didn't get so much red energy from, a different kind of human or infections of a different kind, even though that had a red album cover. But the last two albums, these new two albums, I've gotten very much red energy. There's blues as well. There are blues coming in here as well. And this album is definitely her most experimental. I think that we have seen her gradually kind of try to explore different genres in the kind of wheelhouse of what her vocals are suited well for. And honestly, this has her doing things I wasn't even sure we'd ever get Aurora doing. But even if you go back to her first record, there are the seeds for a lot of different genres within the alternative pop dance kind of sphere, not just acoustic, guitar balladry, that Aurora can excel in. And so it's really not that surprising that we even get some very heavy hyper pop, almost metal elements. I wouldn't call this a heavy metal record, but there are heavy metal sentiments and tempos and some instrumental stuff that is absolutely bonkers that we certainly did not get on the Gods We Can Touch. I think the Gods We Can Touch was trying to be a little bit more top 40 mainstream radio friendly, although we definitely have, I think, more from the choice of the singles from this record, a similar situation where the singles that have been chosen up until Starvation, the singles that were chosen initially, Your Blood, Some Type of Skin, and Conflict of the Mind, but particularly those two former ones being some of the most radio-friendly songs on the record, the most accessible. Some Type of Skin in particular, I think that is the most 80s synth pop song you could possibly make, with a very cathartic melody that I think sits at home in Aurora's discography journey so far, very much in the lane that she was coming off of the Gods We Can Touch. Whereas Your Blood has her kind of experimenting with a more staccato pop sound with guitars. And that's a very kind of alternative style of guitar pop that I think is kind of interesting and refreshing for her. We've got 16 songs here, and I do want to dive into every song because Aurora is one of my core artists, and I like to dissect the lyrics. But I will say that this album is very up-tempo with very few moments of respite. There are a couple songs where we really strip things back. And Echo of My Shadow, the intro song, is one of the most sparse on the record, which I actually think was a great way to open it up, as just it kind of invites you into the space before it takes off fully with To Be All Right. There's just some, distant keyboards, some distant piano, some distant guitar, as Aurora harmonizes with herself, almost like an organ coming in in the final third. I will say that but unfortunately, I have to start out by saying that Echo of My Shadow is probably the one song on the album that doesn't really do anything for me melodically. It's the one song that I don't feel the melody is sticking to me for. And that's really unfortunate because it is the opener. I'm always, I think Aurora has an immaculate ear for melody, and this is one of the few times where she misses. It sort of reminds me how on Florence and the Machine's Highest Hope album, the intro song June did a similar thing for me where it was just, I wasn't at all melodically interested in the composition, but I could never omit it from the record. I don't want to call it a skip. Opening songs are hardly ever skips for records. They're just too important. You can't, there's a reason it's at the beginning, especially for the artist. I mean, maybe you don't get it as a listener, but skipping right to be all right, it just doesn't seem right to me. Even if this is the one skip on the record, and I really hate saying that, it can't be skipped because it's number one. Track number one, it's especially for a concept album like this, it's too important to omit. But it is kind of a song melodically that I'm just not carried anywhere with. And I hate saying that. I wonder if anyone else agrees. If I stay here any longer, I will stay here forever, and the echo of my world will fade. Will the edge of my sorrow be gone in the morning? Stay right here, stay in the light, my dear, until the love you crave falls in your arms. I know your mind moves like a wave sometimes. If you can't rise for us, do it for love. In the final outro, if I stay here any longer, I will stay here forever, till the echo of my shadow is gone. There are heroes within us. There are lovers around us. They will be here forever, I know. It's a very poignant opener, focused on what she has to say. If my life is just a moment and this world is ancient, then the light through my window will fade. Young mountains, old rivers, let them become me right now. My favorite verse: stay in the light, do not give up hope. Do it for love. Do it for that spiritual sense you feel, to stay with us, stay alive, fight for another day, see the light come through your window another morning. This is definitely Aurora, I think, singing to herself, a very poignant sort of letter of, I know it's really hard for you to keep the faith right now, but it is vital that you do. In track two, as we open up and get percussion and up the tempo, we have her pleading to fit in on this earth, in the most kind of unapologetic fashion. I know I belong here on earth, but I long to be lifted up. My heart does not rhyme the rhythm of my mind. That's like the thesis statement here, right? What is life worth living if you can't dance to anything? Night after night, oh, I long to be all right. I want to feel it, what the people talk about. How do you find it so easy? And all I can is ask. But whatever you say, it's never right. So I won't do that. You cannot make me feel a thing. And wherever I go, I'm always blind, so I lose my track. You cannot make me feel all right. I love how she sinks into her baritone on this track. There's some real dynamic to her vocal and call and response nature to it. And the buildup of her vocals. It's really interesting sonically. This is an optimistic song with murkiness beneath it, just wanting to break through that lotus, wanting to break through the mud. How do you find it so easy? That's something I constantly ask myself. I constantly ask of others in the world when it seems like, from the outside looking in, that life is just so much easier for everyone else. At least for everyone else that you know off of the top of your head isn't going through something very noticeably difficult from first glance. You just see an average person. You automatically come to this conclusion. And how do I gel my heart with my mind? Because these two are at odds. I feel that a lot. Sometimes I feel that the most when I'm thinking about love and romance. These two things not always syncing up. Your Blood, the lead single, produced by Aurora and Chris Griotti, has that staccato, that sticky electropop melody, and it really does lift off the page, although I also love how it then dives back in under itself with these guitar chords, that cadence up and down, these synth chords. It's like really layered and ecstatic, but also mysterious. Your blood, what matter is it made of? Do you feel it travel in and out of your heart? Needles stitching up the big holes. You prepared for battle as you fell apart. A theme, again, expressing emotion as blood moving in and out of the sort of center of yourself, figuratively represented here as the heart. The Conflict of the Mind was a second single released back in January. And it has a very contemplative, oscillating synth note going back and forth around it, very conversational in the verse to chorus and how it's formed. It's a complicated story that we never talk about, but I see it in the mirrors in the curtains of our house. I don't want you to be worried that we're running out of time. It doesn't matter where we're going, we can leave it all behind. Only when I see you cry, I feel conflicted in my mind. It fills my heart up and it breaks me at the very same time. When you open up the gates for me and leave the world behind, we find proof of love is hidden in the conflict of the mind. That dichotomy, like I said, is the place that you have to search to get to love. You have to do some real dissecting of the anatomy, spiritual anatomy, the psycho-spiritual anatomy, I'm going to call it. And these dichotomies are so brilliantly illustrated, these kind of emotional dichotomies of feeling. In your eyes, I saw longing while I longed to lift you up. Were you digging something up or did you bury something down? There's this duality in the heart, and it can go either way. But don't let the spirit die. This is a matter of the mind that is not. It's not ultimately important if your heart is still alive. If your heart is still beating, if you still have hope in your life, in your soul, in your heart, you can overcome any of these kind of conflicts of duality, which is really what I think she's more talking about. It's a complicated story. Love is a complicated story, but also humanity. I think she's talking more overarchingly. There's a global perspective as well as a insular perspective, or a domestic perspective, I should say. I mean, the music video shows her sitting at a table in a domestic setting, but I see it as all metaphor. I see, the people at the table as representing humanity to a certain degree, or different factions of it. And it sticks out. This song sticks out on an album that, is going in different directions. And like I said, the rest of the second half of the album is where we turn the heat up. The first half of the album is, more ruminative, more understated, more introspective. We come to Some Type of Skin, which is the big 80s power ballad of the record. Hit me hard where I am soft, should my heart reveal itself to be more than a muscle, or a fist covered in blood. However much it feels to bleed, it's only temporary. We're good people, and we both deserve peace. My God, it's a lot. To build some type of skin. It's a lot to me. I've got to build it. You got to build something because you got to protect the heart. The heart needs protection. It's a very soft, oh God, it freaks me out sometimes when I think about the heart. If anyone's from the Philadelphia region and you know of the Franklin Institute, there's an exhibit of a human heart that you can walk through, and there's like sound effects and everything. It's so visceral, like of a way to explore like the ventricles and the compartments, the chambers. And this song makes me think of that. And in the music video, she's around sort of all these like mannequins, and it's sort of like trying to find a nameless, shapeless human form to inhabit with all of your emotion, and as a way to find peace, because you do need some sort of shelter. You need to put up some sort of protected barrier to find inner peace, because you are vulnerable when you are without some form of defense. So then track number 6, we bring it back down to the guitar level. I definitely hear very much, not only in the instrumentation and the tempo of the song, but in her vocal itself. I hear Billie Eilish. And sometimes I listen to it and I'm like, that could be Billie singing. And that's not a problem. I like with my favorite, I like when an artist sort of does a little bit of channeling on songs, and you can be like, this song sounds a little bit like this person, and this one sounds a little bit like this one. This one is maybe we will. It's so Billie Eilish in how it has that sultry sort of ennui coming across. The song feels a little bit downtrodden. In another life, home feels like home. I've mourned you now longer than I've known you, as the trees cry their leaves, vulnerable just like me. Maybe it will be all right. We all hurt sometimes, and we are running through the waves of time. And the truth can lie in the arms of a fight. And I try, but it hurts so much to be in touch, so I'd rather not. It hurts so much to be in touch with the essence of us. I think getting to the core is difficult. You know, it takes a lot out of you. There's a lot of sadness in the heart, I think, that lives in the heart. And when you kind of strip back into it, you can be overwhelmed by the sadness that you've stored there. I've often felt that the heart is a place where sadness is stored, and I get that sort of vibe here. And sometimes that's why falling in love can feel so scary, because it is a risk. Because that person could, and in so doing, opening up your heart, you are allowing them to touch a part of you that's been hurt and exploring and sort of bringing that hurt to the surface. But maybe it'll be okay. Again, there's this sort of listless unsuredness to this song. The melody is definitely one that doesn't leap off the page. I will say that it perhaps disrupts the flow of the record somewhat, because we're sort of building more and more into the cathartic sort of rave section of the record. But I also like breaking it up. We have one other song that's very much, a ballad that I think is sonically way more interesting coming up. Earthly Delights starts out sparse and minimal, as if we can feel ourselves in that beautiful, beautiful sunlit forest with Aurora, that place that her music always takes me. First you made for me a river, so I would have water, made for me a garden, so I would have earth. But I'm so lonely. When everything dies, can you stay with me? But when at last time consumes me, broken and unholy, let my body wander far away from here. You make for me a portal, eyes warmed up with sorrow. You always envied mortals, 'cause we can leave. There's this this tribal, oceanic rhythm of her humming coming in that reminds me of Enya, and it just elevates this song as it starts to take off before it settles back down. There's a rumbling of movement, emotional movement. And in the final chorus, there is no God in here without me, my dear. When everything dies, will you be lonely? So lonely. I would say this is from the perspective of Earth, but I do also think it's from the perspective of the first person on Earth, but not literally. The spirit, the spirit of sort of acknowledging what God has created, what has been created for you here, and yet feeling so alone in this paradise, and knowing that everything is going to end. There's this sorrow that pervades. And that sorrow is so present on the melody of this track, and the outro is so ethereal and otherworldly. So this is one of those tracks where Aurora is at her most arcane, and I just absolutely am here for it. One of the standouts for sure. And then on the Dark Dresses Lightly, we have a, kind of dire chord opening the number, and then it jauntily kind of rolls up into the percussion, and we get that baritone kind of tribal sound from Aurora's vocal. It's very guttural. This is a very ominous track. Guess I shouldn't have kept the knife in my heart for so long. Guess I shouldn't have held back when I needed you to know. I just want to cry with you tonight. It's perfectly fine to grieve the hurt that's gonna die. Let us dance to our sorrow, make amends. There's so much you still don't know. Here's to us now, my dear. We're going deep now. All this fear, it's contagious. Now we're here, let our glasses overflow. Here's to us now, my dear. It took too long. The dark dresses lightly, razor sharp as it cuts right through my soul. I'm assuming she means the dark is conflict. And she talks about how this song is about trying to avoid conflict, trying to distill an argument down so that you can have a reasonable, amicable kind of discussion about it and a disagreement, rather than fighting physically or saying harsh words to one another. And to quote Aurora, even though it may be painful to talk about these problems, there is more pain in continuing conflict without communication. Discussing the issues we face is a step towards understanding each other and bringing closure to conflict. If The Essence was giving us a little Billie Eilish, then this song is definitely giving us Florence and the Machine. That sort of guttural, kind of witchy undertone to her vocal with that percussion is definitely evocative of some of those tracks, some of those ritualistic, kind of darker tracks from Florence. And I love that kind of energy. I love seeing the diversity of sound and influence here. Track number 9, A Soul with No King, might be sonically one of my favorite songs on the record. I love the instrumentation. It's all organic instruments compared to a lot of their album. It's a lot of synthetic, but it's up-tempo. It's the one up-tempo organic instrumental song. It has a very distinct Nordic sound to me with the fiddle. I think that she is personifying, in speaking from the perspective of sorrow and despair. That's how I'm interpreting these lyrics. I know you know me and you always will, like a man with no wisdom and a soul with no king. I know you feel me, your heart unfulfilled, like a world with no mother and a home never built. But if this is what you want, why speak of right and wrong? You still go in for the kill. I think the first 2 verses make me think of despair. The refrain makes me think perhaps it means more speaking of desire. You'll go for what you want, whether the wrong way or the right way. You'll still do harm to yourself, likely in pursuit of it. But that makes me think that it's something negative. You speak of the devil like he's not your friend. When the world starts to burn, give the water to him. Call my name. Nothing will ever change. No guilt, no shame. Call out my name when you need me again. There's a lot of, I think, things she could be referring to, but I'm kind of leaning more towards this being sort of the devil on your shoulder, maybe doubt, maybe sorrow, kind of coming and nagging in your ear, sort of omnipresent in the background of your life, casting doubt and shadow, and sort of admitting to and sort of saying to you that you can't run from me. I am known to you, and I will always be known to you, and you call for me often without knowing it. Track number 10 is Dreams, which is the most wistful and melancholic and idyllic song on the record. It reminds me so much sonically of It Happened Quiet, which is the most beautiful ballad Aurora has ever written, with a lamentative guitar and her voice so fragile and close and delicate to the mic. And then it erupts into a choral moment with beautiful layered choral vocals, a cappella, and it just really eviscerates the heart. This song is the most beautiful on the record, for sure, and it is the most the core of what I want from Aurora's music. Every album, there's a song, that has that gravity, that emotional gravity to it. Through the Eyes of a Child is sort of the blueprint song for that, and we get iterations of that. It Happened Quiet, and now Dreams. And I feel all of the emotion, even if I'm not even thinking literally about the lyrics, I'm just listening to the melody. I've needed so much with nothing to touch, floating from earth, another bridge burned, a mother concerned, come back to the world. In my dreams, everything's more quiet than here. In my dreams, everything I feel disappears. That's the safe space where nothing, the barrage of constant thought, is quieted down. In the bridge, learn my body and my poems and repeat them like you own them. Like the arrow and the willow, we all bend. Let the mothers and the daughters climb out of the waters. Like the needle and the cockroach, we mend. Ooh, I hate cockroaches. That takes me out of the song, hearing that word. But I also think that Aurora's lyricism is always quirky like that, and I appreciate it. It Happened Quiet has a similar sort of lyrical style. Very poetic. Apparently, Aurora has spoken about this being inspired by a story of a girl who wants to disappear from the world, and her mother keeps wanting to bring her back. There's definitely a matriarchal, feminist power to this, imbued in the song. Mothers and daughters mending each other, mending society. Don't lie to the world, don't lie to a girl. I traveled through the dark, so tired and so aimless. I traveled through the darkness, so my path would be impossible to track. That line stuck out right away. I get a sense of someone who's just so overwhelmed with pain and sorrow. I think this is sort of succumbing to the weight of the world and wanting to escape. And in your dreams, that's the place where that pain doesn't hurt anymore, where the constant clatter of the mind shuts down, and all of those feelings in the heart all disappear because those feelings are so dark, and you're so lost yourself because of the world and what it's done to you. So yeah, melancholic, definitely an Aurora song that's kind of tragic and doesn't necessarily serves as a sort of portal into a space of introspection that is so sacred, I think, in the listener. This is definitely like, and then it envelops you in a cathedral, a choral sound that she uses her voice as an instrument so mellifluously. And I just want it to continue before it finishes up with that last refrain on guitar acoustically, but it doesn't, it gets it just, it's just like a very bittersweet blanket of comfort and melancholy. And oh, I just live for it. I just live for it. And I don't know if I should feel good about it or if I should just cry about the sorrow of everything and just sort of succumb to the despair that I feel kind of inside of me often. So it's one of those songs where you might be like, well, it's beautiful, but whew, it takes me to a dark place. Takes me to a dark place. It's a tragic song. It's a tragic song. It's acknowledging that reality is, I think whenever you have a song that is kind of acknowledging that dichotomy between reality and dreams, of escaping something so dark and that's being alive, it will kind of read as sort of a plea to die. And I think that there is a bit of that in this song. And there is some optimism about, we will mend, like the arrow in the willow, we will bend. My body will decompose. My poems will hopefully, continue to live on after I die. And someone else will find inspiration from it. But I'm going away. This place, too crazy. Oh, it's too much. This is the song on the record for me. It is my absolute favorite. But once we pass this song, the rest of the record is all up tempo until the end. We get 5 songs in a row that are kind of bangers. I'm going to go through them a little quicker. But first we have My Name. And Magnus Galstad comes back. He's not been on this album as much as other records. She's been experimenting with a lot of others. And Anna Brun is a feature, although you barely hear her. So I didn't even actually know that she was a feature. And also Tom Rollins. She works with him on some later songs on this record. And we've got this electrifying electro-pop beat as she weaves in and out and kind of postulating on the futility of life if you're going to die anyway. The parade, an innocent way to teach a dying cell, you eventually will be eaten by yourself. Whew! That's a great way to sort of euphemize living and dying. Nobody asks for the help, far away. Somebody was given just another year, another departure in their atmosphere. Will you forget I was here? And that's sort of the lingering question. Don't you give up. You've got another year to live. This is definitely this is letting sort of doubt and despair kind of speak through you, I think. That's how I'm interpreting it. And one of the biggest doubts and fears. I think fear is kind of driving the question. Do You Feel, I think, took the longest to grow on me out of all the uptempo tracks, but after a while, it's risen to the occasion. What can I say? I want to get down like Squidward to this track. It does things to me. Never give up this feeling. Never give up on love. There's a bit of a Eurythmics, Annie Lennox kind of diva projection, I think, over the dance floor kind of energy. Do you feel love? You got me burning, but I can't stop. It feels like I need it. I think that disco, kind of almost dance floor energy is the frenetic energy is sort of like the answer song to my name of like, this is what we live for. This is the kind of fire that keeps us warm. We dance in her flames. This is the purpose of life. It's love. And then Starvation, which now has a music video. Starvation has the most psychedelic trance breakdown. It's almost like the kind of style of industrial electronic hyperpop, almost gabber sounding music that at the end explodes. And it actually reminds me a little bit of what Björk was doing on Fossora. I feel like there's a little bit of a conversation there. Nicholas Rebscher, he works on several of these tracks. He did his damn thing, okay? And of course, Aurora as well. I miss the touch of human hands on my skin. I miss the rush of beauty coming from within. Do I need to be torn just to see who will care? I sleep on the floor, dreaming my life away. Why do we have to die for us to see the light? And we hunger for love. Why do we touch the knife when we long to feel alive? And we hunger for love, and my soul is starving. That ecstatic chorus is just so piercing. She shouts this in a very, kind of frustrated, frantic manner. Break me, chasing the enemy, got to deal with the devil, but I got the stamina. Higher than anything I've ever seen or been. Right now, everything's empty, starving, craving, chasing the remedy. I got used to the torture, but no one deserves to be alone. Break me, chase the enemy. My soul is hurting, but I got the stamina. Why do we have to die for us to see the light? The greatest trick of them all. And it is a tragic trick. A tragic sleight of hand from the universe that feels cruel. And this song feels subjugated against, and it explodes at the end to try and revel in that and just sort of shake off or exorcise this frustration in such an intense way that I think is so brilliantly illustrated here sonically. I think that this song is just absolutely transcendent. Definitely an EDM scene song, a rave song. Chemical Brothers, she works with one of the guys from the Chemical Brothers on a later song. Aurora has stated that our souls are starving because AI is taking over. Art is being replaced by computers. I didn't make that connection. This song addresses the disconnection modern life imposes on humans. Song being techno, it contrasts its theme. Rave music is technically associated with sweaty, closed, and overcrowded places, but this song is about someone starving for connection. So yeah, I mean, this is about yearning for someone to be with. And I think that there is something kind of lonely about dance floors, as much as it is about as much as it is the antithesis of that. I think sometimes when one is in a club, you can have this sort of experience where you actually feel very alone, even though you're amongst so many people. And I think that is sort of expressed wonderfully at this juxtaposition of the theme of the song and the instrumental. The Blade, oh boy, this one is sickening. Oh, this song is sickening. Watch out, watch what you say. Your truth becomes your grave. A sword can cut both ways, but I've got sharp blades. Feel the rage. Soft hearts need protection. She reminds us in the bridge. A bit of Grimes production here. I feel like I could hear Grimes elements of We Appreciate Power, the sort of almost video game quality to the direness of the song, the production. I could see Grimes being a feature on this one. Every song, it's like it points to a different artist, and I really love it. I mean, it's a vibe. I feel like Grimes is sort of some computer game sword wielding badass character here. I get major Nordic warrior, priestess vibes. And then we have My Body Is Not Mine, which has these sort of these like vocal distorted kind of very kind of Nintendo kind of glitchy glitch pop kind of thing going on. I don't think that's really an accurate way of describing it, but does the job. There's some, interesting wordplay. Interestingly, Magnus Skylstad comes back in here. I can remember the first time I felt my mind. turning into a beast of a new kind. If there's a demon in the line of my aim, I won't be calling its name. I would stare at the back of my hand for days, reading the wisdom written up for me in my veins. If there's a demon in the eye of my soul, I won't be letting you know. Sort of like acknowledging I'm being possessed. Feel no pain and I never cry. I bleed no blood and I never die. My body's not mine. Body's not mine. Body's not mine. I need no body. Succumbing to your perhaps lesser, more primal instincts. There's this detachment between the body and emotion, and there's definitely something to talk about. Current mental health, the mental health crisis of modern life. A lot of times, people going through these sort of like going through something like a panic attack or some sort of dissociative episode, something that is a result of some sort of disorder from their mental disability. They feel as though their body is not their own, and the mind plays tricks on you. It's almost like it's like a celebration or an acknowledgement. And the song, doesn't exactly paint it as right or wrong. It just acknowledges the fact. And this is a reality for so many people. And then lastly, we have invisible wounds. We go back to a sparse sort of ambient outdoors kind of environment with this kind of Björkian synth note that I don't honestly, this synth chord isn't exactly doing it for me. I'll be honest with you. It's a little simplistic. It's a little repetitive. It's a little amellifluous, but it does the job as serving as the bones. I squeeze into a small hole through the eyes of needles to stitch you up again, even though I know so well I can't fix anything. I look for blood to shed, mistaking every vein for thread, spreading out too thin as I'm lying in my bed, barely existing. And I need you to understand. Sometimes I see light and I fear it's only fantasy. Oh, wouldn't it be tragic if there is no light in me, not any magic? And I need you to forgive me. I know the best I can isn't always good enough. It hurts to know I hurt you, like I know it hurts for you to know you've hurt me. And now my blood is yours, and life is slowly losing touch. How do we learn to tend to these invisible wounds our homes give us? I can't heal you, and you can't heal me, even if we wanted to and how I wanted to. And I need you to stop needing me like I've needed you. We both need to tend to the invisible wounds. At the end of a relationship, triage is needed. And time apart, space, time apart to kind of to heal separately is probably better than forcing healing together. I look for blood to shed. I'm constantly looking for something to stitch up or poke a hole in, and we're just damaging each other. So for us to find healing, we need to let the wound heal on its own. Stop poking at it. And that's what I think it's like. It's like circling the drain when something's going downhill. Sometimes it's about knowing when to walk away from two parties. And I'm interpreting this, kind of between two people, but it could be extrapolated to be about greater conflict. I think that I haven't touched on this yet, but Aurora has been very vocal about the conflict in the Middle East and in Palestine. And I can't help but draw comparisons because I know a lot of this record some of the lyrics were probably written with that conflict in mind. And just about how healing can come about from such horrors that are being done from one group to the other and back and forth in a never-ending cycle of violence. And in, wars and struggles all over the world throughout history. There's so much healing. There's so much time that I think introspectively needs to be taken to allow for that healing. And this is an album that is craving for healing. I think this is an album that is craving for that sort of catharsis to move on. And the heart is so vulnerable, and if it bleeds out, it dies. So you need to, you need to triage like crazy, and you need to stitch everything up. And and you're in such a vulnerable state, and the world is in such a vulnerable state right now. And I think that that is something that Aurora is drawing from here. And even though, again, I always kind of come for melody first, the lyrics stand out to me. This is probably lyrically one of Aurora's records I'm just the most blown away by. I mean, I've always been blown away by Aurora's songwriting, but I was just like, my goodness, like there's a lot to dissect here. And I really do, coupled with the cathartic nature of the dance for this song, for the songs, I really do feel like that, we need the like kind of mellow, kind of like wistful, kind of ambient outdoors kind of vibe for a lot of this kind of stuff. But I also think that the nightclub dance element is so important to the sort of catharsis of this record and exercising all these feelings or negative thoughts, and so to create healing. And so it was a great pairing, I think, for her to go in this direction. And I also think, again, it's sort of visually represented wonderfully when she's wearing sort of like the armor, but then like the dress at the same time. It's sort of like something soft and feminine, but then like hardcore and edgy and like masculine. It's these dichotomies that she's playing with here on this record to sort of represent the condition of healing. There's like a frilly kind of like introspective side, and then there's like a more bombastic kind of in your face side to healing. There's all of these things come through in the process, but we end again like we opened on like a like much more kind of sparser note, which I think made sense. So overall, 16 tracks that really leave an impression. But like I said, I think the opening and closing, maybe the closing, I think, has that, that chorus and that bridge where the notes open up for her. And, it's less her sort of like barely having a melody and just sort of like um, hovering close to that, like I said, synth chord that she's playing and really expanding out, and those guitars coming in. That really elevates the melody of this song. I wish there was more of that. And the song maybe ended in a more kind of the song kind of ended in a more sonically uplifting way instead of just sort of kind of petering out a little bit. This album definitely doesn't feel like it has a grandiose end of any kind, but maybe it didn't need that. It's coming up and then back down again. This album takes you through quite a lot. So I really, really like it. I think it's stronger than The Gods We Can Touch. At least the strong songs are really, really not touching a lot of things on that record. And I do like The Gods We Can Touch. I'm not saying that, I mean, maybe out of the four albums we've gotten so far, especially obviously if you're including A Different Kind of Human and Infections of a Different Kind, The Gods We Can Touch might be my least favorite album of hers so far. But I mean, I love every Aurora project. I mean, there's no saying I don't like an Aurora album. It's just not possible for me. I'm such a stan. But, for those who are potentially discovering Aurora, I don't know if this is necessarily the best entry point record for those fans, for new fans, but it depends what you kind of want out of pop music. This definitely is a pop record, even though it's very experimental and it goes into a lot of different kinds of pop genres that, some may like, some may not. But I think that Aurora definitely has a little bit for everyone on here. And I do, I like that she didn't completely abandon some of her more acoustic balladry. I've been wanting that, something that is just very soft, but also melodic. And unfortunately, the first song and the last song on this record don't have quite the melody that I'm looking for, but they are soft. Aurora is really good, soft and hard. So she's got both angles of that, and she's phenomenal vocals. What are your thoughts on the record? I mean, it's a really interesting project to dissect, and I think it'll hold up really well for me. Every song is just revealing itself more and more. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the production too. Really interesting stuff in the production. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. It is criminal that no one cares. No one cares about Aurora. I was really hoping that she was going to potentially start to have moderate, success. At least in the UK and Norway, I think that she is a little bit in the conversation in the alternative pop sphere. In the US, no one talking about her. anymore. It's really sad. I thought maybe after Cure for Me, she was gonna, and then she was in the Frozen soundtrack. I really hoped Aurora would potentially start to, I never saw her becoming like that famous, but I had hoped that maybe she would reach the heights of like Sigrid or, sort of some of the other Nordic kind of pop girls, but that have crossed over into the States market. But unfortunately, this record has proven that she doesn't really have that much presence in the States and barely any in Europe. But in Norway, she's pretty popular in Scandinavia, so she'll be selling there. But Aurora, we need more people to be listening to this kind of music. Oh, it's so good. Check it out if you haven't. Thank you all so much for watching. Comment again down below. What are your thoughts on the record? What are your favorite songs? My favorites are definitely Dreams, Starvation, Your Blood, Earthly Delights, The Blade. Those are probably the tops. I do love A Soul with No King. A Soul with No King, 100%. But honestly, I love them all. Like I said, An Echo of My Shadow would be my least favorite, but it's not like I'm deleting it from my phone, okay? It's still going to be a part of the album. I can't do that to an opening track. I can't do that to an opening track. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Please give this a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new here, and I'll see you all in my next video. Peace, love, and light. Bye.